She bit her lip in anticipation. Discover the amazing, transformative journey that awaits you. In the sweltering kitchen of the diner, Sarah Thompson felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, the grease of the day's specials soaking into her denim apron. Working double shifts, she watched the clock as it ticked down, each second a reminder of the relentless cycle of bills and dreams deferred. She often glimpsed her reflection in the stainless steel, a weary visage of a single mother wrestling with crippling doubts and an urgent ambition to be more than just a waitress. Her 15-year-old son, Jake, was the light of her life, but even that light flickered with his insecurities. "You can do it, Mom," he said after hearing her dreams of teaching, but sometimes she felt she was just a shadow of the woman she aspired to be. The attic, cluttered with memories of her father's innovative teaching days, loomed in her mind. His journals, filled with passion and ingenious ideas, beckoned her to look within, to remember who she was and who she could be. But as she tossed and turned at night, a tempest brewed inside her. What if she wasn't going to be enough? What if she failed? The pervasive whispers of the townsfolk, innuendos about a woman chasing dreams at her age, clawed at her resolve. Jake, still fragile with uncertainty, needed a strong mother. Yet the weight of her own aspirations felt like she was shackling him because he would see her failures. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let us continue. Then came that first day in class, and she swallowed hard as she walked through the doors of the university campus, where younger students strode with ease, their laughter echoing in the air. With each glance from the professors, she felt smaller, a middle-aged waitress drowning in the flurry of eager minds untainted by life as burdens. Could she have the courage to speak up, to fight back against the stigma that wrung her like a damp cloth? By the end of that first lecture, she realized the challenges of academia were as sharp as the knives she worked with at the diner. Determination slowly turned to desperation when she faced her own inadequacies head-on. How was she competing with brilliant youths who didn't know what it fully meant to struggle? And then there was Professor Hardy, the very embodiment of condescension, his glances like chains binding her down. The prospect of an esteemed teaching award became her obsession, a beacon of hope overshadowed by an ever-growing abyss of self-doubt. Each paper she wrote was weighed by the crushing expectations of her father's legacy and the breath-stopping fear of tarnishing it. In the dim light of her attic, she sank to the floor, surrounded by remnants of a past, feeling more broken than ever. And just as clarity beckoned her identity unmarked and her potential unfurling, a knock echoed through the silence, cutting through her ruminations. It sent an electric jolt through her. It was a face from the past, a reminder that perhaps, in pursuit of her rightful place, everything she knew about success and the price of her dreams was about to be challenged. As she hesitated, gripping the doorknob tightly, anxiety mingled with a glimmering thread of hope. Would she find the strength to shatter the glass ceiling that separated her from her dreams, or would the relentless pressure of expectations crush her before she even had the chance to emerge? The door creaked open, revealing a tall silhouette framed against the evening light. It was Amanda, her college roommate from 2 decades ago, brimming with the same infectious energy that had drawn Sarah to her in the first place. Amanda's career trajectory had been nothing short of dazzling, a professor, a mentor, and now a consultant for educational reform. Sarah's heart raced, both at the nostalgia of their past and the new insecurities that flooded forth. With a wide smile, Amanda stepped inside, oblivious to the turmoil swirling within Sarah. "Sarah, it's been ages." Her enthusiastic greeting was like a blast of summer warmth, yet it only intensified Sarah's internal struggle. This encounter represented everything that Sarah aspired to be, reflected back at her, in contrast to her lingering doubts. They settled into a cozy corner of the attic where dust motes danced like fragments of lost opportunities around them. As Amanda spoke animatedly about her projects and innovations, Sarah felt a chasm growing between their lives. I remember our late-night discussions about education. Amanda said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. You always had such unique ideas. What is holding you back from pursuing them? That simple question pierced through Sarah's defenses, opening up an uncomfortable space for reflection. She had countless ideas sketched in her father's journals, the wisdom of a lifetime. But the courage to embrace them hung heavily on her, weighed down by her relentless fears. I'm not sure I have what it takes anymore, responsibilities. Amanda interrupted, leaning in closer, her expression fierce yet compassionate. We all have those. But that doesn't mean you can't carve out a path for your dreams. You owe it to yourself and your son to try. Remember why you started? Rewrite your narrative. As the words hung in the air, they struck Sarah with a relentless clarity. Amanda was right. She owed it to herself, to Jake, and to her father's legacy to step into the light. Shame twisted in her gut, but accompanying it was a sliver of resolve, an echo of the woman she once was, quietly demanding to be heard again. Maybe you can help me, Sarah said, the tentative words tumbling out before she could reclaim them. I could use guidance on rebuilding my confidence and maybe a few tips on teaching methods. Amanda's face lit up with enthusiasm. Absolutely. You need to reconnect with your voice and remember, fear only thrives in silence. Let's make a plan. And just like that, a newfound determination began to surge through Sarah. The moments leading up to her first class had been shadowed by doubt, but now, the frame of that picture started to shift. Perhaps the weight of her aspirations was not a burden, but a driving force, one that could shape her identity rather than shatter it. They spent hours outlining actionable steps, revisiting her father's lessons, building a teaching philosophy, and even crafting a paper that reflected her experiences. Sarah used every ounce of her will to commit. The adrenaline of possibilities surged through each plan they laid out together. As the sun began to set, flooding the attic with a golden haze, hope flickered brighter than it had in years. Yet, just beyond the horizon, an unsettling thought intruded. What if her next step was met with the same resistance from those who doubted her? That specter loomed large, but amidst the uncertainty, something inside her blossomed. This was the beginning of her second chance. The moment of truth was approaching, one that demanded not just courage, but true authenticity. As Amanda rose to leave, Sarah's heart raced at the prospect of her new journey. This could be the spark that ignited the fire within her. They hugged tightly, and just as Amanda reached the door, she turned back, a serious look in her eyes. Remember, Sarah, the time will come when you must confront your past with or without me. Just don't let fear hold you back again. As the door clicked shut behind Amanda, Sarah stood in the attic, the remnants of her father's dreams whispering around her. Clenching the paper they had worked on together, she felt the weight of expectation transform into a challenge, one that could either propel her or ensnare her. Would she embrace the confrontation with her fears and become the teacher she yearned to be, or would the ghosts of doubt continue to haunt her? Standing at the threshold of possibility, Sarah took a deep breath, ready to confront what lay ahead, unaware of the storm that was on the horizon. The morning sun poured into the attic, illuminating notes and sketches strewn across the floor. Each piece of paper was a fragment of an untold story, whispering to Sarah as she navigated through the haze of her past. This was not merely a workspace. It was a sanctuary of potential, a crucible for transformation. A torrent of emotions coursed through her as the weight of her father's legacy pressed against her shoulders, an invitation to honor his teachings by stepping boldly into the unknown. Today was the day Sarah had resolved to confront her fears. In the back of her mind, the echo of Amanda's words thrummed ominously. Fear only thrives in silence. Taking a steadying breath, she formulated a plan for her first class. The theoretical framework swirled in her mind, waiting for her to give it substance. Yet, as Sarah settled at her desk, fingers poised over her laptop, doubts surged. Would her efforts resonate with students who were worlds away from her experiences? Would they see value in voices steeped in stories of resilience? She could already hear the whispers of skeptics, her own doubts amplified into cacophonous objections. Shaking off the paralysis, Sarah forced herself to recount the teachings of her father, moments that felt like familiar handholds in rocky terrain. He had always emphasized the importance of connection, of authenticity. Those principles could guide her today. With newfound determination, she began crafting the syllabus, her thoughts oscillating between clarity and confusion. Each time she stuttered into uncertainty, a flicker of Amanda's belief ignited within her. In the heart of the organization, Sarah discovered vulnerabilities that felt almost comforting. She began jotting down not just the educational framework, but her personal narrative, the fragments of her journey, every fear, every setback. It was time to pull back the curtain and share who she was. Gradually, she constructed a lesson plan around not just academic insights, but her own experiences with struggle and perseverance. As the clock ticked toward her class, Sarah felt an exhilarating blend of anxiety and excitement. The anticipation of being in front of the students was electrifying. She couldn't ignore the nagging notion of stumbling over her words or facing a gaze of indifference from the audience. Gripping the edges of the desk, she recognized that these fears could spiral into an emotional storm, but deep inside, she sensed a revolution brewing. It was no longer about her. The lessons were about the students, their experiences, and fostering an environment where dialogue could flourish. Stepping outside, the air felt charged. The path to the classroom loomed ahead like a threshold into uncharted territory. Her feet felt heavier with each step. Memories of her father's advice reverberated in her mind. The only way to the other side is through. As she entered the classroom, the faces of her students awaited, expectant yet dispassionate, a blank canvas that sent her heart racing. Sarah paused, her gaze sweeping over the diverse array of interests and backgrounds reflected in those faces. This was not merely a demographic. Each student came with dreams, aspirations, and fears. She cleared her throat, embarking on the delicate dance of teacher and student, gripping the edges of the desk again. Today, we're not just discussing theories. We're engaging with our stories. I hope to hear from you, but first, let me share my own. As she launched into her narrative, a surprising calm washed over her. Each word seemed to break a barrier within, turning vulnerability into empowerment while inviting the students to reciprocate. In that moment, her self-doubt began to scatter like autumn leaves caught in a brisk wind, giving way to something more profound: authenticity. However, just as she thought she had won a significant battle, a shadow lurked at the back of the class, a familiar face from her past that made her breath catch. The specter of an old rival, the embodiment of those nagging doubts, loomed large, ready to challenge every reassurance she had just built. Mind racing, Sarah faced the unexpected confrontation head-on. Would she freeze under pressure, or could she harness the momentum of this moment to fuel her resolve? The decision tumbled in her mind as she prepared for the impending turmoil. The hour forward promised to unfold like a complex tapestry, one that could see her rise or fall based on her next choices. Every teacher knows the importance of first impressions, and Sarah was about to make hers. What lay in store for her as she faced the growing tension? As Sarah's gaze met that of her former rival, Melissa, a wave of unease coursed through her. Melissa's presence felt like an anchor dragging her down into treacherous waters. The memory of their past encounters surged, reminding her of the relentless competition and biting remarks that had once overshadowed her confidence. Yet confronting Melissa today was pivotal, not just to survive the class, but to thrive in it. Taking a deep breath, Sarah recognized that this was not only about their history, but about stepping into her new role as an educator. She turned her body slightly to encompass the entire classroom, establishing presence, acknowledging that every student deserved to feel valued. I encourage you to share your own stories or questions as we dive in. Let us create an atmosphere of support. Melissa sat with her arms crossed, eyes flickering with skepticism, an inscrutable facade that begged to be pierced. The challenge loomed large. In that moment, Sarah was faced with a choice: succumb to the familiar trepidation or challenge herself to elevate not just her teaching, but her self-image. Class, let us start with a simple exercise. She began pacing the front of the room, channeling her nervous energy into a clear directive. Take a moment to think about a significant challenge you've faced. It can be personal or academic. Jot it down, and then we'll share some reflections. As the classroom began to fill with the sound of pens scratching on paper, Sarah's heart raced, not just from anxiety, but from a rush of hope. It was validating to know that she could create a space where openness could flourish, transforming fear into connection. The weight of her past rivalship felt lighter as she harnessed her resolve. Once you're done, I want you to think about what you learned from that experience. Learning doesn't just happen through books. It's ingrained in our life stories. Sarah's voice grew steadier, finding its rhythm. She observed the students, many glancing at each other, some furrowing their brows in thought, all the while feeling the collective pulse of discovery in the room. Just as she prepared to open the floor, Sarah caught a flicker of movement in Melissa's body language. For the first time, Melissa sat forward, her defensiveness cracking slightly. Perhaps this exercise was just as transformational for her as it was for the others. Feeling emboldened, Sarah turned to the class. Would anyone like to share their story? Silence hung for a moment, and Sarah felt the familiar bite of doubt creeping back. But before she could retreat into herself, a hesitant hand shot up, a shy young woman named Clara, who had been quietly sitting at the back. "I'll go," she said, glancing nervously at her peers. Clara's narrative unfolded softly, weaving through moments of vulnerability, courage, and lessons learned. As she spoke, Sarah realized that this was the essence of education, not just delivering content, but creating a shared space where students could explore their identities. Her heart swelled with pride. They were cultivating a culture of empathy. Yet, as Clara finished her sharing, Melissa finally spoke, her tone dripping with that familiar competitive edge. "That's nice and all, but isn't education supposed to be about achieving things that matter in the real world? Stories can only go so far." An uncomfortable tension rolled through the class. Murmurs of approval bubbled beneath surface discussions, threatening to drown Clara's earlier courage. Sarah felt caught in the crossfire of validation and rivalry. This was the moment she had anticipated, the pivotal juncture where she could either hide behind her insecurities or seize the opportunity to reaffirm the value of personal narratives. The stakes of her teaching philosophy hung on this very exchange, the ideals of authentic connection versus the rigidity of traditional metrics. "Education is about more than benchmarks," Sarah countered, maintaining her poise despite the implicit challenge in Melissa's comment. "Real growth occurs in understanding ourselves and each other. The lessons we learn from our experiences shape who we are far beyond grades." She paused, grappling with her next words. "Today, I implore you to consider the people that these stories belong to, the dreams and challenges each of you brings to this room. That is the true foundation of our learning." Electricity filled the air as her voice rang with newfound conviction. The atmosphere shifted. She saw nods of agreement and reflections reframing the way they viewed the lesson. But before she could bask in a breakthrough, Melissa replied, "You're overselling this, Sarah. Compassion is great, but reality is harsh. Why should we care about empathy when we need to succeed?" With each word, the internal tension escalated. Would Sarah's approach hold firm against such pointed skepticism? As confrontation loomed in the silence that followed, Sarah recognized a daunting truth. She was not standing merely as a teacher, but as an advocate for her beliefs, her legacy. In the face of scrutiny and doubt, Her resolve felt more fortified than ever. A decision bubbled beneath her surface. Could she turn this moment, riddled with tension, into a catalyst for change? The stakes of the class had risen, and Sarah braced herself, ready to direct the energy in a way that could transform the learning space and perhaps her sense of self, too. The moment lay before her, waiting. Would she inspire her students to embrace the lessons of their stories, or would they remain shackled to traditional expectations? The choice she would make next could redefine her journey entirely. As silence enveloped the room, Sarah felt Melissa's challenge weigh down on her, dark and insistent. Her heart raced, pulse echoing the unspoken thoughts swirling in her mind. Was her commitment to empathy an adequate response to the grueling realities of the world they lived in? The question gnawed at her. Alongside her conviction stood the specter of Melissa, her presence a relentless reminder of a world rooted in competitiveness and tangible outcomes. Taking a deep breath, she turned her focus inward, seeking clarity amidst the noise. She thought about the stories shared, the vulnerability laid bare. In Clara's warm narrative, there had been honesty and a glimpse of resilience, things that painted a fuller picture of success beyond grades. With that in mind, she arranged her thoughts like pieces of a puzzle, ready to assemble a powerful response. "Melissa, I understand where you're coming from," Sarah began, trying to inject her words with a calm that belied the storm brewing inside her. "But think about it this way. Every successful person has faced challenges that shaped them. They didn't emerge from a vacuum of endless achievements. They were molded by their experiences, including moments of failure and connection." The students shifted in their seats, leaning in with curiosity. Sarah noticed Clara, the shy girl from earlier, nodding her head, emboldened by the support Sarah had woven into the fabric of their exchange. A flicker of hope ignited within her. This dialogue could open minds and hearts alike. "It's true that grades matter in our academic world," Sarah continued, emboldened by the momentum of the discussion. "But knowledge without understanding lacks depth. When we share our stories, we're not just talking about our pasts. We're inviting each other to learn together, to expand beyond mere metrics." Melissa's brow furrowed, a perfect stage for Sarah to plant her new perspective. "Imagine if, instead of solely focusing on numbers, we also measured our growth in resilience, empathy, and collaborative spirit. Those traits empower us to succeed in ways that grades alone cannot." She saw a tentative change in the room, eyes brightening, thoughts shifting. For every moment she could lean into the discomfort of confrontation, she could also push herself to redefine what success meant not just for her, but for the students who were the heartbeat of this classroom. But the tension lingered. Melissa's skepticism still hovered like a cloud blocking the sunlight. "So what you're saying is we should focus more on feelings than results?" She pushed. The air thickened as eyes flitted between the two women, a battleground forming from their ideological clash. Sarah felt the weight of every gaze, each one a microcosm of future educators, business leaders, and creatives who would emerge from this classroom. The stakes felt higher than ever. "No, I'm saying we should integrate both. Learning is multifaceted. What if our experiences, our challenges, are the crucial context that informs those results?" With newfound determination, Sarah pressed on. There's value in feeling connected to the material, understanding its relevance to our lives. That's the journey each of you should embrace. Melissa's defenses met Sarah's growing belief with a slight crack. A visible hesitation washed over her, as if the very foundations of her competitive ideals were being challenged in real time. The shift in dynamics invigorated Sarah, and she could sense a collective energy of curiosity blossoming new pathways among her students. Yet, before she could seize the moment to deepen this exchange, the bell rang, pulling her back into the mundane reality of time constraints. The lecture hall buzzed with chatter as students began to gather their things, and she felt an unsettling mix of disappointment and triumph. "Remember, this lesson isn't just about today," she called out, her voice rising above the chatter. The real beauty lies in how you will carry these reflections forward. Continue to question, to explore, and to share. As students filed out, Sarah felt the reverberations of what had transpired. In the juxtaposition between her beliefs and Melissa's skepticism, growth had ignited both within her and the class. But as excitement mounted inside her, a sliver of doubt crept back in. Would this breakthrough last beyond the classroom walls? Would the seeds of connection she had planted endure in the face of a world that still so heavily prioritized achievement above all? With the questions hanging like fog in the air, Sarah exhaled slowly, realizing change often begins with small moments of confrontation. Could she find a way to rekindle this momentum, encouraging her students to navigate both their vulnerabilities and their definitions of success in such a competitive landscape? As the door swung shut behind the last student, she wondered how to balance the pedagogical theories she cherished with the harsh realities they faced. Maybe the next class would provide a clear answer, or a transformation she hadn't anticipated yet, waiting just around the corner. The room fell silent, leaving Sarah to grapple with the transient victory she had just tasted. The buzz of student interactions faded away, blending into a backdrop of indeterminate noise that echoed her growing unease. The clash with Melissa had ignited something deep within her, a realization that strong advocacy often stems from the discomfort of confrontation. Yet, as she sorted through her lingering doubts, anxiety coiled tightly around her. How could she foster a real dialogue about success when faced with an institutional framework that often dismissed the very heart of human experience? As the last chairs scraped against the floor and shadows lengthened across the sprawling hall, Sarah felt an ember of resolve spark inside her. She envisioned the next class, not just as a chance to explore more intellectual terrain, but as an opportunity to delve deeper into the emotional and psychological layers that connected her students' lives to their learning. The urgency pulsed within her. She needed to harness this moment. Days flew by as lessons churned on like relentless waves. Sarah prepared, drafting tailored activities that invited her students to explore their stories. She framed the upcoming class around the theme of resilience beyond results. Questions swirled in her mind. Would they relate? Would they allow themselves to be vulnerable in a space that often demanded walls to be built? On the day of the class, she stepped into the lecture hall, her heart fluttering with anticipation. The familiar sea of faces awaited her, a mix of curiosity and latent skepticism shining through. As she launched into the lesson, she detailed the lives of individuals who had triumphed against adversity, weaving powerful narratives those who had turned scars into lessons. Today, she said, we're going to share our own stories of resilience. I want each of you to think deeply about a challenge you've faced. It could be anything: academic pressure, personal loss, even the struggle of fitting in. The room simmered in discomfort. Some students shifted in their seats, glancing at one another, while others wore expressions laden with uncertainty. For a moment, doubt crept back into Sarah's awareness. Would they open up? Would her vulnerability encourage theirs, or would their walls stand resolute against her call? Then Clara raised her hand, a small step that sent ripples of surprise through the hall. I had a project due last semester, and I thought I was going to fail it because of everything happening at home. But I didn't I asked for help, and the discourse unfolded like a delicate flower, petal by petal revealing a core of sincerity. One by one, students began to share, each story creating a tapestry of interconnected struggles that resonated with everyone present. As they listened intently, something shifted. The atmosphere began to resonate with collective understanding and compassion. Yet through it all, a voice echoed ominously in her mind: Melissa's. Sarah fought the nagging whisper that questioned whether this connection was enough. Was this exercise truly preparing them for the harsh reality ahead? Or had she merely sidestepped the critical conversation about achievement? The true measure of their transformative engagement weighed heavily on her. As the class concluded, Sarah felt the thrill of connection woven through her and her students. She witnessed a collective realization their experiences of failure shaped their paths toward success, just as she had hoped. Yet with that thrill came the question, had she merely scratched the surface? As the final bell rang, rolling echoes of laughter and stories lingered in the air, but her mind spiraled back to Melissa's glare, simmering uncertainty clawing at her resolve. Could she push past her insecurities and face Melissa again with a more integrated approach to success, one that blended their emotional experiences with tangible outcomes? The moment approached when she would have to confront the glaring dichotomy once more. And this time, the implications of her choices would reverberate far beyond the classroom door. Change was brewing in Sarah's heart like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. The classroom had transformed into a sanctuary, yet doubts lingered like remnants of a past conflict, especially with Melissa waiting in the wings, ready to challenge her perspective. She felt an unsettling tension between emotional connection and academic rigor, a grappling match within her mind. Was she truly fostering resilience, or just skimming the surface of what mattered? Driven by an unyielding desire to delve deeper, Sarah set her sights on recalibrating her approach. Over the next few days, she sought out resources that intertwined elements of soft skills communication, empathy, and adaptability with the hard realities her students would eventually face. She pored over articles, interviewed alumni, and brainstormed strategies to integrate testimony with technique. Slowly, she began drafting an innovative framework for her next class. It was an alignment, a bridge between their lived experiences and the skills they would need to navigate the professional world. However, doubts still fogged her clarity. As she walked the campus hallways, the white noise of student chatter felt increasingly familiar but distant. Conversations swirled about internships and GPAs, casting shadows over her renewed focus. The looming presence of Melissa haunted her thoughts, depicting everything she was striving against, yet somehow envied. Sarah would need to be brazen, ready to defend her beliefs while forging her own path. You need to balance emotional intelligence with success metrics. Melissa's words replayed in Sarah's mind, an echo of a challenge yet to be met. Each day intensified her urgency to present her integrated model. But was she merely deflecting the confrontation or honing it? The day arrived, thick with anticipation. As she stood before her students, she felt more grounded, more aware of her purpose. Today's theme, Success is a Spectrum, was designed to normalize the inevitability of setbacks while equipping students with tools grounded in resilience. She could see the faces in front of her, the curiosity radiating from their expressions like sunlight breaking through clouds. It was time. Let's explore how we define success. She started, her voice strong yet inviting. I want you to picture your aspirations, your career goals. Affix them to the wall in your mind. Now, think of the obstacles you've faced them. These experiences contribute to your unique story. As she turned their attention to group activities, the classroom morphed into a vibrant exchange of ideas. Students filled sticky notes with their definitions of success, and failure's words sprung forth like alive confessions. Sarah facilitated, but her role shifted from instructor to fellow traveler. It was a dance students discussed, argued, and embraced vulnerability. She watched Clara regroup with others, their discourse evolving into a seismic brainstorming session that not only dissected personal journeys, but also birthed actionable plans. This was it her doubts began to wane, replaced by enthusiasm and commitment. Yet, in the midst of this transformation lay another confrontation looming. Melissa. Sarah sacrificed no minute of reflection. Battling the weight of potential failure was one thing, yet the imminent prospect of direct challenge loomed. Would she be able to articulate the courage she cultivated within her students, or would Melissa dismiss her ideas as simply fanciful? As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, the students left invigorated. But Sarah remained, her heart racing. The outlines of a debate with Melissa began to letter itself in her mind, a crescendo of thoughts spilling forth and a resolve being built. She wasn't just advocating for her classroom. She was defining her stance on what education could and should be. And with each pulse of determination, the time drew near when she would face Melissa again. But in this moment of introspection, Sarah understood that the battle didn't reside solely with Melissa's skepticism. It existed within the weight of her own convictions. Determined to reconcile her new approach against Melissa's impending resistance, Sarah took a breath, ready to embrace what lay ahead. How would she express her newfound clarity? What string of evidence would support her beliefs against Melissa's institutional doctrine? She stood there, the storm brewing anew, and prepared for the clash that awaited her. The time had come to face the very core of what she believed in. Sarah spent the evening poring over her notes, the vibrant discussions from class replaying in her mind like a highlight reel. Each insightful comment from her students had ignited a flame within her. They had opened up about their dreams, fears, and the challenges that shaped them. It became unmistakable that real success wasn't just about achieving a static goal, but about growth through adversity. This realization fueled her passion, transforming the classroom into a crucible for personal and professional evolution. But how could she articulate this effectively to Melissa, who seemed steadfast in her belief that metrics reigned supreme? Sarah felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension as she prepped her arguments. During dinner, as she moved the fork through her pasta absent-mindedly, she pondered what specific examples she could draw upon to illustrate her point. Drawing from her students' stories could add authenticity, but would Melissa, grounded in traditional paradigms, understand their value? Her thoughts marinated in uncertainty until she decided. She would let her students be her voice. In the following days, Sarah met with a few of her more outspoken students, including Clara and Liam. She shared her intentions for the upcoming confrontation with Melissa and asked for their insights. Clara, who had once struggled with public speaking, had recently delivered a compelling presentation about failure leading to innovation, a theme that encapsulated Sarah's vision. Talk about authenticity, Clara said, her eyes alight with enthusiasm. We all have setbacks, but they're part of our narrative. If we can share how we turn them around, it'll resonate. Liam chimed in, and we're not just numbers. Schools can't forget the human element, how we feel matters. This sparked a lively brainstorming session, each student contributing their personal stories of setbacks transformed into resilience. The night before the meeting with Melissa, Sarah felt an electric tension in the air. She practiced articulating her arguments in front of a mirror. Education isn't just about grades and data. It's about shaping future leaders who can adapt, empathize, and innovate. Each repetition built a layer of confidence. Yet, as the hour approached, anxiety crept back. The specter of confrontation loomed large. When the morning came, Sarah entered the faculty lounge, where Melissa was already seated, flipping through reports. The sight of her rival, meticulously analyzing numbers, set off a flurry of butterflies in Sarah's stomach. She took a steadying breath and approached. Melissa, I'd love to discuss my recent class insights about success and resilience. I think there's a valuable dialogue we can have. Melissa looked up, her expression unreadable. Is this about the spectrum of success you proposed? I'm all ears, but I do hope you're not overlooking the fundamentals. Sarah's heart quickened, but she steadied herself. I believe by embracing our experiences and vulnerabilities, we can cultivate resilience that transcends traditional metrics. My students are thriving through this lens. Melissa raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Are we teaching them to confront the real world, or merely instilling a sense of false hope? The battle line was drawn, and Sarah felt the weight of the moment. This was no longer just about her teaching method. It was about her convictions. Would she bend under Melissa's scrutiny, or stand firm in her beliefs? Let me show you, Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. I want to bring my students into this discussion. Their voices hold the key to proving that success is dynamic. The conversation shifted, with Melissa wavering, intrigued, but still guarded. Sarah seized the opportunity. If we can align their stories with actionable outcomes, maybe we can illustrate a new way forward together. As they discussed potential frameworks, uncertainty still gripped Sarah, but something else flickered beneath it. Hope. This could be the turning point she desperately sought. Sarah knew the real test was yet to come. Would bringing her students' narratives into the light be enough to change Melissa's mind, and perhaps even the institution's rigid outlook? The stakes were rising, and it was time to find out. Would Sarah's resolve hold strong as the intersection of theory and practice collided head-on in the face of institutional ideology? The following morning, Sarah found herself awake before dawn, the quiet stillness of her apartment broken only by the gentle hum of the coffee maker. She stared out the window, anticipation dancing in her chest like the rise of the sun. Today was pivotal, not just for her career, but for her students. It wouldn't be merely a presentation. It would herald a shift in how education was perceived within the school's walls. She gathered her notes and rehearsed last-minute details. The weight of responsibility pressed upon her. This wasn't merely about metrics versus narrative. It was about her students, their stories of perseverance, and ultimately their futures. The clarity of her purpose sharpened her focus, pushing aside the flutter of nerves that threatened to overwhelm her. Once at school, Sarah felt the familiar buzz of energy around her. Students drifted in, vibrant and full of life. She thought of the stories they had shared, Liam's tale of overcoming his fear of failure and Clara's journey of reclaiming her voice. Each narrative was a thread woven into a larger tapestry that illustrated resilience. But how to present these stories to Melissa without losing the essence of their impact? As the clock ticked toward the meeting, Sarah gathered Clara and Liam, who were waiting expectantly. Their trust in her weighed heavily in the best possible way. Sarah felt as if she was not just representing her views, but their dreams as well. Their support fueled her resolve. Preparing them for their upcoming part in the discussion, she emphasized authenticity. Speak from your heart. Your experiences matter. There's power in vulnerability. They nodded, and for a moment, Sarah allowed herself to bask in their courage. Then, with a deep breath, they stepped into the conference room. To her surprise, Melissa was already seated, tapping at a keyboard, a few graphs on her screen. Sarah's pulse quickened. She had envisioned a grand entrance, but now the moment felt intimate, charged with possibility. "Thank you both for coming," Melissa said without glancing up, her tone betraying little. "I'm curious to see how you plan to move beyond anecdote to actionable insights." Sarah exchanged a glance with Clara and Liam, gathering their collective energy as she initiated the conversation. "We want to illustrate how resilience can lead to genuine success through personal narratives." Melissa's eyes narrowed slightly, still skeptical. "And how will these narratives manifest in measurable outcomes?" Liam stepped forward, voice steady. "My story began in fear. My anxiety about failure paralyzed me. But when we framed challenges as part of our growth journey, I found the courage to push beyond my limits. Now, I not only achieve better grades, but feel more confident in myself." Clara chimed in. "And in sharing these highs and lows, we can foster an environment that encourages all students to see their potential. It's not just about passing tests. It's about passing through life's trials with growth." Watching the exchange, Sarah felt the energy of their honesty reverberate in the room. Melissa's demeanor softened, though a hint of doubt still lingered in her eyes. "You're asserting that these personal stories can compete against quantifiable performance metrics?" She pressed, arching an eyebrow. "Exactly," Sarah replied, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "They're complementary to metrics, not a replacement." Encouraging stories fosters empathy in students, preparing them for real-world challenges where resilience becomes essential. The silence that followed felt like an eternity, thick with tension. Would she forge ahead or relent to skepticism? Melissa finally leaned back, a look of calculation crossing her face. "Very well. If you can propose a framework that includes these discussions leading to measurable outcomes, let's see how this can be structured." There was an opening. The room's atmosphere shifted, charged with potential as they discussed frameworks more conducive to effective teaching. They exchanged ideas, Sarah feeling validated and inspired by the possibilities unfolding. Yet a nagging question lingered. Were her efforts enough to shake the ground beneath Melissa's traditional views? Would she truly be able to open the doors for a fundamental shift, or would the grip of past methods still prevail? As they wrapped up, Sarah felt invigorated but also burdened. The next steps would demand relentless commitment, and the path moving forward was steeped in uncertainty. How could they survive the inevitable pushback from others who clung rigidly to conventional practices? Leaving the conference room, Sarah realized the journey had just begun. The real challenge lay in ensuring that their newfound alliance could withstand scrutiny. And deep down, she knew the greatest test awaited, bridging the academic metrics with their human stories without breaking either. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the pressures of institution overshadow her aspirations? The minutes ticked by, and she felt the pulse of the impending showdown pushing her to the brink once more. What was the true cost of this change? The weeks following the meeting with Melissa unfurled at an unpredictable pace. Feedback from the faculty began to trickle in, some intrigued and supportive, while others remained entrenched in skepticism. Sarah's vision of intertwining narratives of resilience with academic rigor inspired a few colleagues, but also ignited fierce debates in faculty meetings. Each passing day bore the weight of her mission, a sturdy bridge built amidst clashing ideologies. With Clara and Liam at her side, Sarah embarked on preparing a pilot lesson plan that seamlessly intertwined their stories with measurable learning outcomes. They crafted activities that included personal reflections followed by collaborative projects. By linking the concepts discussed with real-world applications, they aimed to illustrate how emotional intelligence could bolster academic performance. It was bold, innovative, and driven by an unwavering commitment to change. On the day of their first pilot class, nerves danced in Sarah's stomach. She stood at the door, watching students trickle in with expressions ranging from curiosity to indifference. Smoothing her blouse, she inhaled deeply and stepped into the classroom, ready to set the tone for this new approach. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're exploring resilience through your own stories. She began, her heart racing with anticipation. As she detailed the lesson plan, she could feel the shift in energy, a collective draw toward authenticity. This time, as her students engaged, the atmosphere felt electric. Clara kicked off the discussion by courageously recounting her experience of overcoming illness, illustrating how she had turned vulnerability into insight. As she spoke, students' eyes widened, and the room filled with compassion. Inspired, other students began to share, and soon stories echoed against the walls. Shared laughter streamed through moments of pain. Insights flourished, showing the profound connections formed through vulnerability. Just as Sarah envisioned, these stories provided a scaffolding that transformed academic discussions into profound personal reflections. Yet, unbidden, a tense thought flickered like an unwelcome visitor. What would Melissa say? Would this presentation stand up to scrutiny in terms of academic performance metrics? When the bell rang, the students filed out, leaving behind an air of camaraderie that surmounted the mundane concerns of grades and tests. Sarah caught her breath, feeling more than just the weight of the day lift off her shoulders. She had turned lessons into conversations, creating depth where surfaces once lay. Perhaps she had achieved a subtle shift in the hearts of her students, but that still made her vulnerable. Before Sarah could reflect further, Melissa strode in, her presence questioning and aloof. "I'd like to speak with you regarding today's lesson," she said, arms crossed. The air stretched taut with anticipation, a duel rendered palpable. Would she find fault or recognize the innovation that had emerged? "I noticed a shift in engagement," Melissa began, her tone guarded but softened. "However, how do you quantify this? The emotional connections are commendable, but academic outcomes are what our institution needs to see. Students need more than feelings. They need results. There was again the challenge she anticipated. Sarah stood firm, recalling the stories woven in that room, emboldened by the connection she had witnessed. Melissa, I understand your concerns, but this approach fosters emotional intelligence, which enhances students' ability to navigate their academic journeys. We're preparing them for more than tests. We're equipping them with life skills. Melissa's brow furrowed, an internal battle raging. What are you producing results? Not just in grades, Sarah asserted. Look at Clara. Her confidence in public speaking grew exponentially. It's a pathway to thriving in and beyond these walls, becoming whole individuals. Success isn't simply numerical, it's multifaceted. That's the future we should champion. In that moment, as doubt flickered in Melissa's eyes, Sarah felt the satisfaction of standing firmly in her convictions, clarity emerging amid complexity. For the first time, she sensed Melissa grappling with an undeniable truth. These emotional narratives were as vital to student success as any metrics. Melissa relaxed her stance slightly, pondering Sarah's words. Perhaps she was beginning to grasp the, albeit fragile, connection between academia and humanity. I need time to consider this, reconcile it with my understanding of traditional success metrics, she finally said, her tone softening. And just like that, Sarah had proven herself, her belief validating both her effort and her students. This was not just a victory of ideology. It was a step toward real change. She had succeeded in challenging the status quo while advocating for the importance of human experience. In the following weeks, Sarah's room buzzed with energy, bridging stories and scholarly pursuits. Clara and Liam took proud ownership of their narratives, finding purpose through engagement and action. As Sarah recognized her students thriving, she too found deeper fulfillment in her role, one that helped mold not only educated students but empathetic leaders. The story had come full circle. No longer was she a shadow of her dreams. She had confronted her fears and emerged as a teacher who championed authenticity. As she navigated the complex landscape of academia, she had found her voice, unlocking her potential in each lesson she imparted. It was not merely about reshaping education, but embodying the legacy of her father's teachings, crafting a space for success where each student could shine. With conviction brimming in her heart, she took a moment to reflect. She was not merely surviving in the educational realm, but thriving. Each step she took deepened her commitment, fueling her desire to inspire change. Sarah Thompson was no longer just the waitress with a dream to teach. She had become an educator who reached into the lives of her students, helping them realize that their stories held power. As she glanced at a photo of her father, pride unfurled within her. She had achieved a profound transformation, reclaiming her narrative with unwavering strength and moved toward an empowering legacy. The road ahead remained winding, yet for the first time, Sarah felt entirely capable of navigating it. Now is your chance to join this transformative journey together. Don't let this moment slip by. You need to subscribe now to the channel to unlock this exclusive emotional story of growth and determination. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support more inspiring tales of personal achievement. Remember to comment below with your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible transformation. This conversation needs your voice. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness Sarah's move from struggle to triumph. Don't wait even one more second to share this journey of overcoming adversity. Your support is crucial. Be part of this movement.